Marcus Webb had spent 21 years in boxing arenas, long enough to have developed the particular literacy of a man who has been paid to understand what happens in them. He knew the smell of a venue the day before a championship card. Closed gym clean, tape and canvas, the particular quiet of a building that was already thinking about tomorrow. He knew how credentialed staff moved through access checkpoints, with the uncomplicated ease of people who had done this before and didn't need to explain themselves. And he knew, because 21 years had taught him the shape of it, what a cornerman's walk looked like, deliberate and settled. The walk of a man who had already mapped what the next 2 days would require and was simply covering the distance to get started. He saw all of that the moment Coach Vernon Osei came through the lower-level entry of Crest Home Arena. The man was 56 years old and wore it well. Not old, but settled, with the ease of someone who had already proved everything he needed to prove and was no longer in a hurry to prove it again. He had a training bag over one shoulder and a set of corner pads under one arm, and around his neck, on a green lanyard, a laminated credential that read in plain block letters, Corner Staff, Suite 4. He moved along the lower corridor without hurrying, reading suite numbers as he passed them, a man who knew exactly where he was going. Marcus was 30 feet away, moving toward the credential table with a clipboard of press assignments, when he saw Derek Crane step out from behind the table and raise one hand. "Sir." Derek's tone was flat and certain. The voice of a conclusion reached before any information had been gathered. "This corridor is credentialed corner staff only. Equipment runners use the service corridor. Back that way." Then left. Coach Osei stopped. He did not set down the bag. "I'm the corner," he said. "Suite 4. Vernon Osei." Derek glanced at the tablet in his hand. He did not open it. "I'll need to verify that. The credential is on the lanyard." "I understand. I'll still need to pull up the roster." Derek looked at the tablet again, which remained closed to any visible roster. "If you'll give me a moment." "All right," Coach Osei said. He waited. Marcus stopped walking. He told himself it was to check something on his clipboard. He did not check anything on his clipboard. 1 minute passed, and then another. A cut man and a trainer from a different camp came through the lower entry in that time. Both white, neither visibly credentialed, neither of them carrying anything on a lanyard. Derek looked up from his closed tablet, said, "Go ahead," and waved them through with a tilt of his head. No stop, no question, no screen open for either of them. Coach Osei saw all of it. His expression did not change. He repositioned the corner pads under his arm to a more comfortable hold, the way a man does when he has decided he is going to be somewhere a little longer than expected, and he waited with a quiet, level patience, not defiant, not diminished, simply present, the way a man is present when he has been in too many long rounds to lose himself in the space between them. "Mr. Osei," Derek said. His tablet was still not open to any roster Marcus could identify. "Is it possible you are with one of the visiting camps? Support staff sometimes come through this entrance, and I just want to—" "I'm not support staff." Coach Osei's voice had not changed since the first word, even, unhurried, with a weight in it that did not need volume. "I am the corner. The suite is 4. The fighter is Darius Cole. The booking is in my name. The credential has been current with this venue for 6 consecutive years." He looked at Derek Crane with the clarity of a man giving the only instruction that matters. "Which credential am I missing?" Derek's mouth opened. It closed. "I'll ask again," Coach Osei said. "Which one?" No answer came. Derek looked at the tablet, as though rescue might appear there without him opening anything. It did not. Coach Osei set the corner pads down against the wall, careful about it, setting them at an angle so they wouldn't slide, the way you set something down when you already know when you're going to pick it back up. He reached into the breast pocket of his jacket and took out his phone. "I'm going to make one call," he said. He was telling Derek what was about to happen, not asking permission. "After the call, I'll pick these up and go to my suite." He dialed. He put the phone to his ear. He fixed his eyes on a point on the far wall and waited with the stillness of a man who has spent 30 years learning that how you hold yourself in a moment like this is the only thing you can control. Marcus Webb, standing 30 feet away with a clipboard he hadn't looked at in 5 minutes, found he couldn't look away. Jerome Aldrin had been director of boxing events at Crest Home Arena for 9 years. long enough that his name appeared on 3 framed championship programs in the main concourse and on a brass plaque near the press entrance that most people had stopped noticing. He was 44 years old and still moved the way his trainer had spent 7 years teaching him to move. Economical, light on his feet, nothing wasted. He had been a light welterweight. He had won 1 title and retired undefeated in the division, and the title had come because he had spent 7 years working with a cornerman named Vernon Osei, who could see inside a fighter's mechanics with a precision Jerome had not found anywhere else in the sport, and who could explain what he saw in a way that a 22-year-old kid from a modest gym in a small city could actually use. He answered on the second ring. "Coach." His voice carried warmth that required no effort. "Where are you?" He listened. His face changed once, briefly, and settled into something purposeful. "Don't move," he said. Jerome came down the hall 2 minutes and 30 seconds later. Marcus counted. He had stopped pretending to do anything else. Jerome came through the connecting door at the corridor's end with the focus of a man who knows what he is about to do and is already doing it. He saw Coach Osei standing beside his corner pads with his arms at his sides and a phone held loosely in one hand, and he walked to him directly and took the man's hand in both of his own. "Coach." "Jerome." Jerome turned to Derek Crane. He did not raise his voice. That was what Marcus would carry with him out of that corridor. The absolute quiet of Jerome Aldrin in that moment, the way his voice dropped rather than rose, and the particular weight of that drop in the still air. "This is Vernon Osei," Jerome said. "He trained me for 7 years. He put me in position to win a title in 2003, and that title is a significant part of why I was eventually brought to this building." He looked at Derek evenly, without heat. He has held an active corner staff credential with this venue for 6 consecutive years without a single access incident. Suite 4 has been reserved in his name since Monday, with his fighter listed as the principal. All of that is in your system. It is on that tablet. It can be confirmed in under 30 seconds. Jerome paused. "What stopped you from opening it?" Derek's mouth moved. "I'm not asking what you assumed," Jerome said. "I'm asking what stopped you from opening the tablet." Silence. The corridor had changed while Jerome was speaking. A referee in a blue blazer at the connecting door had stopped and was not moving through it. The 2 cornermen who had been waved through 20 minutes ago stood at the far end of the hall and were not going anywhere. Marcus Webb had taken 4 steps toward the credential table without deciding to, and was no longer pretending he had any other reason for standing where he was. "I'm going to have arena manager Hollis come down," Jerome said. "She'll be here in a few minutes. I'd like you to stay at this table until she arrives." He waited. "Can you do that?" Derek said he could. Jerome turned back to Coach Osei. He picked up the corner pads from against the wall. He held them out. "Suite 4 is ready. Let me walk you in." Coach Osei took the pads. He lifted his training bag onto his shoulder. He said nothing about what had taken place in the previous 25 minutes. Not one word, not a look back. He adjusted the lanyard on his credential, settled the bag, and walked with Jerome toward the suite corridor. And if his face held anything as he passed the credential table, it was not triumph, and it was not bitterness. It was the face of a man who had expected this to take longer and was glad it had not. Marcus Webb watched them round the corner. He stood in the quiet they left behind. He thought about the 2 cornermen who had been waved through without a word. Louise Hollis, Cresthome's arena manager, arrived 4 minutes after Jerome's call. She listened to the account standing at the credential table. She asked Derek 3 questions, wrote his answers carefully on the formal access dispute form the venue required for all credentialing incidents, and wrote with the deliberateness of someone who understood that what she was recording would be read by other people in other contexts. Derek Crane was removed from credentialed access duties for the remainder of the 2-day card, effective immediately. A second credential officer was reassigned to the lower-level entry before the afternoon was out. The formal review opened that evening, standard procedure for any incident in which a documented, current credential had been presented and not honored. When the review closed the following week, a written notice went to the venue's staffing contractor requiring a revision to the credential verification procedure. Open the system, locate the record, confirm the credential against it, and only then address the credential holder. In that order, every time, without exception. Regardless of any prior determination the officer was inclined to make before those steps were completed. The revised procedure was incorporated into the onboarding materials for all future event credentialing staff at Crest Home Arena. Marcus Webb stood in the lower corridor long enough to see Louise Hollis hand Derek the top copy of the form. Then he walked back to the press area, sat down at a table, and looked at the empty arena floor and thought about 30 feet and about 5 minutes and about the fact that he had spent both of them holding a clipboard he wasn't reading. Darius Cole fought on the championship card the following evening. He was 23 years old and very good, patient and precise, reading angles before they opened, trusting the work Coach Osei had put into him over 11 years together. He won in 8 rounds by technical decision. Between the 4th and 5th rounds, Marcus watched from the press row as Coach Osei worked the corner. The economy of it was something to watch. The efficiency of the man's hands, the control of his voice under the arena noise, the way Darius Cole's shoulders settled when he listened and his chin came up, and he looked like someone who had just been reminded of something true. Whatever was said between those two men in that minute, Marcus couldn't make out from where he sat. He thought he could probably guess at the shape of it. Darius came out for the 5th with his footwork right and his guard exactly where it needed to be, and he didn't look back from there. After the card, in the corridor outside the locker rooms, Jerome found Marcus at the media table and asked how the press arrangements had run. Marcus said they'd run fine. Then he said, "Yesterday, at the credential table, I was standing 30 feet from it the whole time, and I didn't say a word." Jerome was quiet for a moment. "You're saying something now," he said. "I should have said it then." Jerome nodded once. Not absolution, not blame, just acknowledgement of a real thing. "He's been in corridors like that one for 32 years, Jerome said. "He knows how to hold his ground and ask the question that doesn't have an answer. He's had enough practice at it." A pause. He shouldn't, but he knows. They stood there a little longer. The arena emptied around them the way arenas do after the last bout. Corner teams and press and security all moving towards somewhere else at once. "The tablet was never opened," Marcus said. "No," Jerome said. "It wasn't." Then Jerome was gone, and Marcus walked out through the press exit into the night air and thought about 4 minutes, about what it had taken Jerome Aldrin to come down a hallway. He thought about 32 years of Coach Vernon Osei arriving at credentialed entrances with a laminated lanyard and his name on a booking, and the particular patience of a man who had learned that his credential would sometimes need to be explained rather than simply read. 7 world champions. 32 years. A tablet that had never been opened. He thought about the question that had no answer. He thought about the 4 steps he had taken toward the credential table. 4 steps toward something he should have moved toward 12 minutes earlier. And what those steps had cost him, and what they would cost him to take next time if he could remember that he had promised himself he would. He hoped he would remember. He thought it depended on whether he recognized the corridor when it came, and whether the memory of this one would be enough to move him before the call got made.